Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and Apple's 2022 Mac lineup sounds bigger, better, and more exciting than ever before because there are now details on six new Mac computers coming for 2022. And on top of that, maybe even 3 versions of Apple's own branded monitors. Yeah, I know, I'm excited, and if you're just as excited as I am, hit the like button and get subscribed because we got a lot to go through. Now, the Apple Silicon timeline for 2022 seems to be a bit mixed, but here's how I think it's going to play out. First, sometime around spring of 2022, we should see Apple release the next iMac Pro and the next Mac Mini. Then, taking a trip to WWDC 2022, I think we will get our first glimpse at the new Mac Pro, and then finally rounding out at the end of the year, probably in October, I believe we will reach the, around second anniversary of the M1 chip, and we will probably see updates to the M2 MacBook Air, M2 entry-level MacBook Pro, and possibly even another M2 Mac Mini. So let's start in that order with the iMac Pro. This product will be replacing the 27-inch Intel iMac in the lineup, not even the iMac Pro. And I think there's a really good chance from this point going forward, Apple will sell the smaller 24-inch iMac, and that will be called the iMac, and then the bigger version will just be called the iMac Pro. No more different size versions of the regular iMac. Just switching that up to a clear distinction between the consumer level iMac and then the pro level iMac. Now, this iMac should look similar to the 24-inch version because we still expect it to retain design elements like the bigger chin to fit in bigger speakers and room for more ports, like 4 Thunderbolt ports and an SD card slot. This iMac should be thicker than the 24-inch version too, allowing more room for those ports, and also a better thermal enclosure to ensure proper heat dissipation for more powerful chips. That's because the iMac Pro is currently rumored to come with the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips, the same ones that are found in the new MacBook Pros, and there's a chance we could see even more powerful chips, including a dual version of the M1 Max chip inside of the iMac Pro, giving this desktop computer even more CPU processing and GPU power, something that Apple might need for a more competitive desktop system. The biggest upgrade that I'm excited for with this new iMac is the display, because we are expecting a mini LED ProMotion display upgrade, which has been reported by multiple sources now, including Ross Young, who has yet to be wrong about an Apple report or leak yet. An iMac-sized display with mini LED would look gorgeous, and it would be hard to beat a computer with Apple Silicon power, match with that display for just an unparalleled video or photo editing workflow. Like a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio, that HDR goodness, that just sounds like the desktop for me. Now, alongside this iMac could be a new Mac Mini. Now, with this Mac Mini, I think there's less surprises here. The biggest surprise we may see is a refreshed design, with John Prosser saying it will have like a plexiglass top, maybe like a 2-tone finish. But functionality-wise, we should pretty much expect this to kind of be just as functional as the space gray Intel Mac Mini. So the big thing with this one is that we expect it to have more ports than the entry-level M1 Mac Mini. So think of it having like more ports, maybe 4 USB-C ports, an SD card slot, HDMI, Ethernet, all that good stuff. And then because the Mac Mini is a small desktop, you'll need to obviously bring along your own monitor for it. And then because it is smaller, I would also expect the Mac Mini to be powered by the same Apple Silicon that is currently found in the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. So probably different configurations of the same M1 Pro and M1 Max chip we have now, not expecting a new chip like we might find with that iMac Pro. I would expect these products to be announced together. So the iMac Pro and Mac Mini probably around the same time frame. And I think what makes the most sense for that is a spring event, perhaps a March event like Apple usually does. I also think that the Mac Mini will be priced around the same as the Intel model if you spec them out the same way. So $1,300 for 512 gigabytes of storage and 16 gigabytes of memory with the M1 Pro chip. And then for the iMac, I would expect a more costly computer thanks to that bigger mini LED display. I think that'll raise the price quite a bit. And, for 512 gigabytes of storage with 16 gigabytes of memory, I would probably expect that to retail for around like $2,500 at the lowest. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see like a starting price for like $3,000 for this type of desktop class machine. And as we move along the road to complete the Apple Silicon timeline, the last Mac that will make the jump into this transition is the Mac Pro. Currently, this needs to be done before the end of 2022 to meet Apple's timeline goal, and what better event to showcase the power of the Mac Pro than at Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, which usually takes place in June, so maybe a June WWDC for 2022. Now, the Mac Pro, according to rumors, will still be a desktop tower that should be around half the size of the current Mac Pro and could pay homage to the G4 Cube in terms of design. A lot is up in the air with this Mac Pro, though, in terms of its design and what sort of ports it will have, or if this Mac Pro will even feature expandable or upgradable parts, or if it will be locked down because of just how closely Apple Silicon components seem to be tied together. For example, on the current Mac Pro, you can change the RAM or the storage and even put in your own graphics card. But on this Mac Pro, the main chip is tied to things like the unified memory design. And you may either need special memory to add to these machines or a special graphics card, or Apple could do a complete 180 and change the path of the Mac Pro, being back to unexpandable or unupgradable. Personally, I think it will be a challenge for Apple to implement this system, but I do think they will allow some expandability here. Maybe not as much as the current Mac Pro, but I still think they want some upgradability or expandability there because that's kind of what they promised when they reintroduced the Mac Pro in 2019. So expect expandability, I guess. I don't know, but maybe not in the same way of a traditional desktop computer where you can just take like almost any component and stick it in there. Now, what we do have a good idea about with this Mac Pro is the type of M1 chip that is going to go into this desktop. That's because Mark Gurman has excellent reporting on the future of Apple Silicon, and he correctly reported the exact specifications of the M1 Pro and M1 Max chip, and he had a report out about the kind of chips Apple wanted to put in the Mac Pro. So for the Mac Pro, the current rumor suggests that Apple will be offering on the low end a 20 CPU core variant with up to 64 cores for the GPU, or basically two M1 Max chips stuck together. On the highest end Mac Pro, we are expecting 4 M1 Max chips working together for a total of 40 CPU cores and a massive 128 GPU cores. These Mac Pros with Apple Silicon sound insane in terms of power, and depending on how these chips are scaled when they work together, we could be seeing like a 4x improvement over what the M1 Max already offers. Now, pricing for the Mac Pro will probably still be pretty expensive. There's no rumors about it, but I'm still expecting that Apple will keep a similarly high price point to the Intel Mac Pro, so somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000 for one of these machines. Now, the last bunch of Macs we are expecting for this year comes in the form of the M2 machines. And these will actually have the true next generation of Apple Silicon. And just like the M1, there could be 3 machines announced around the same time, with the release of the M2 MacBook Air, the entry-level M2 MacBook Pro, and then of course a cheaper M2 Mac Mini. Now, the M2 MacBook Air sounds like the most interesting upgrade when you compare it against the rest of the M2 lineup because it should be getting an all-new form factor with an even thinner and lighter design, and a smaller form factor because, based on rumors, it would be keeping a 13-inch display by reducing the bezel around the display. And right now, the rumors are that the display border will be white like the iMac, and the M2 Air will have multiple color options. We should also see some other nice additions to the M2 Air, including the addition of MagSafe for a dedicated charging port and USB-C connectors on each side of the laptop. So still 2 USB-C connectors, but actually not paired together. So that will actually be nice. You can charge the laptop on either side. As for the M2 MacBook Pro, little is known about this device other than that it will be an entry-level MacBook Pro with an M2 chip instead of an M1 or M1 Pro chip. And I did a dedicated video on what I think this device will be, or what I would hope it would be. And basically, to give you the short version of it, I would expect this to look the same as the 14-inch MacBook Pro, drop the touch bar, come with 2 USB-C ports instead of 3, but still come with an HDMI and an SD card slot. I also expect it to be a bit lighter because of the reduced battery size, and come with just 256 gigabytes of storage and 8 gigabytes of starting memory. Finally, I would expect a pretty simple update to the Mac Mini with no design change, and just Apple slapping an M2 chip into the cheapest Mac. And really with these machines, the M2 chip will be the primary focus considering it's the next generation of Apple Silicon, and should see speed boosts across the board for single-core and multi-core performance. Now, unlike the M1 Pro chip, it will still just have 4 high-performance cores and 4 energy-efficient cores, meaning it should be weaker still in multi-core performance, and GPU-wise, we are only expecting a maximum of a 10-core GPU count on the highest M2 chip. So it will still be quite behind the 16-core M1 Pro design and way behind the 32-core M1 Max design. I also suspect you'll see other limitations too, like a maximum of 16 gigabytes of memory and less storage options. Finally, we just received a fresh leak that has me really excited because Dylan NKT on Twitter has said that LG is working on 3 new displays for Apple. One of them would be a refresh of the 32-inch Pro Display XDR, while another would be a 27-inch iMac display, and lastly, a 24-inch iMac display. Now, these are all for external monitors, not for desktop computers. And the interesting thing about this leak is that both the 27 and 32-inch version of this display will have mini LED and 120 Hz ProMotion, sounding like these will be Apple's monitors that can match that rumored iMac Pro's display quality that we talked about earlier. And it's possible these monitors could be powered by a custom Apple silicon chip to help them achieve this kind of quality and then pass that along to the display. And it's possible these monitors could be powered by a custom Apple silicon chip to ensure that you can get high refresh rate and high resolution. Now, I love this rumor because it means Apple is entering back into the display business with full force, giving us 3 new monitor choices. And that first monitor choice especially, the 24-inch monitor, that would probably look the same as the 24-inch iMac, but more importantly, it should carry a more consumer-level price tag. And then we should be getting that 27-inch iMac display that I'm really excited for in its own monitor version. I wish that was here right now, and hopefully that's cheaper too. Hopefully it's a little bit cheaper than that iMac, so maybe in like the $2,000 price range. And then a 32-inch version, which Apple can still make super expensive if they want to for the highest end customers. And then you actually have a solid monitor lineup choice across the entire lineup if you're going for the 24, 27, or 32-inch designs. I'm just super excited for that because Apple obviously is lacking in the monitor department. The Pro Display was a good step in the right direction, but still, $5,000 without a stand, way too expensive. So hopefully the 24 and 27-inch rumored monitor are much more consumer level friendly. And really, when I look back, this has kind of been like a continuing story for 2020, 2021, and now it looks like 2022. Because this is the year Apple will update all of their Macs to Apple Silicon, and perhaps the year they bring back first-party displays. And that should have this being one of the most exciting years for the Mac in recent memory. But so far, that is what we know for the Mac lineup in 2022. So if you found this video informative, please give me a like. If you want to stay in the infinite loop, be sure you subscribe to the channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.